I thank you very much for tuning in to the No Fruit Podcast. We have some really, really, really uh different ideas about homeschooling. And our guest today, she's going to talk about what the pros and cons are, because she is a seasoned homeschool advocate who is separating what myth from reality and helping families lead their children's education with intention instead of fear. Let's talk about it right after this.
Let's talk about love and marriage the way that God intended. A life experience, here we share it. The No Fruit Podcast. Tune in from any platform. No Fruit Podcast. We'll help your spirit transform.
So, our guest today is a veteran homeschool advocate, a writer, a speaker who has helped thousands of families navigate educational freedom with confidence and clarity. With years of firsthand experience, she brings practical insight and myth busting truth to the homeschooling conversation, challenging assumptions while equipping parents to make informed, empowered decisions. And her name is Linsey. Linsey, we thank you very much for coming onto the show. And
Thank
so
you.
I have a question, right? And
Yeah.
so when people hear homeschooling, what's the biggest myth that instantly comes to mind and why is it so persistent?
I think the big myth is that mom is at a dining room table teaching all the kids, and so the mom has to know calculus and that is all she does. And I think that was a beautiful vision of how it started, right? But
Mm,
we're
mhm.
now where we have tutors and coaches and online courses and dual enrollment, and mom can teach everything if she wants, but she doesn't have to. And actually, finding passionate mentors and educators to like pull into that community might be kind of one of the best things about homeschooling. I think is it's not
Mm,
all on mom or all on dad to try to figure it all out.
mm. So, Lindsay, do you know calculus?
No, I don't. I never made it that far. And so when people say you don't know calculus, how are you going to teach your kid calculus? I said,
Mhm,
thank goodness, because I know some amazing teachers and my
mhm.
kids actually like calculus, and it's because I'm not getting in the way, right?
But sometimes those type of things, because we are not aware, we kind of pull back. We're even though we think that we may not believe into the public school systems or whatever it might be, that we feel like, hey, they can get a better type of education, especially life experiences by being outside the classroom. Sometimes we're a little nervous because we don't think we have enough in ourselves to
We're
equip our
not
children
right. We're
to
not
get to another
qualified
level.
enough. Right.
Yes, the qualification myth is something I struggle with, even though I've been doing this for 24 years. And I think
Mm,
what we like about the idea of public school or private school that isn't working is that at the end of the day, there's somebody we can blame, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can blame it on a
yeah.
teacher or an administrator or a coach or a program. And when there's no one else to blame, that's very scary when we pull that into accountability. And you're not totally 100% responsible for everything. Life doesn't work like that,
Mm-hmm.
but it is ultimately on you to pull all the pieces together. And that's a very uncomfortable responsibility.
Mm. That's a lot of accountability. Sometimes you get, sometimes, I mean, I used to coach Little League football and basketball. And a lot of times, as you're stating, some of the parents, they didn't want to take accountability for their own kids. And I think sometimes in that, if I got to teach them how to speak Spanish or French and I'm using that because sometimes history can feel like a foreign language, or math can feel like a foreign language, especially if we don't understand it ourselves. And sometimes I think that there's a sense of that accountability and or responsibility that we as parents don't know how to really take on, because we may not understand that from the sense of we didn't have that growing up, so it's outside of the norm. So how do we break that idea, one, of being outside the box, thinking outside the box, and number two, even be a little more accountable in our kids' lives?
Yeah, so you look at kids and you instantly think, oh, they turned out well, they didn't turn out well. We want to look at the parents, right? We know that it's not a formula A plus B equals C, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
personalities, things that come along in their lives. Um, we like to think it's inputs equals outputs.
Mhm.
That's not how it is with character or spiritual formation.
Mm.
As much as we'd like to think that's how it works.
Right.
And so math, it's like if I can kind of trust the process and trust God and just know that it's going to be what it's going to be with things like their faith or their getting along in society or having a
Mhm.
job. Can we not, do the ABC 1, 2, 3 early elementary education with a little bit of confidence? Because we're
Mm.
tackling these much bigger problems as parents, hopefully, and kind of just thinking things are going to work out. And there's no syllabus or game plan for a lot of
Mm.
that stuff. So I think we need to trust ourselves a little bit more in the smaller things. Not that reading isn't small,
Mhm.
but we're already taking ownership and responsibility for some very big outcomes in our children's lives. And it's just how we've always done it. So I think we can kind of shift that to things that are more tangible, like
I
Mm.
math
think
and reading.
I think that's a lot of what you said. I want to unpack a little bit of it. I heard you say a little bit about the syllabus, and I always struggled because we've thought about homeschooling our kids,
Mhm.
and we were going to do a partner with a virtual school. And some of that again was, how do I work through the syllabus? I'm mom at times, and then I'm going to be teacher mom at times, and so within the 24-hour day, how do we navigate through that and
Mhm.
help our children understand the differences of those different roles?
Mm.
Yeah, and you're at a time, and you were telling me your children's age, where maybe when you would have made that decision, a lot of more of it would have fallen on you as mom
Mhm.
to sit there with the syllabus and make sure all those pieces came together. I'm blessed now. I've watched my babies go from dollar store workbooks and
Mm-hmm.
lessons I got off of an internet site that was, uh, just a very clunky little homemade thing to now we have virtual schools that are doing a lot of live teaching for my students, and I
Mhm.
just really more check in and ask how they're doing and make sure their grades are going very well, and so it looks different.
Yeah.
I think that the roles for you to think that you can be homeschool mom here and then regular mom here is just as silly as thinking that you're
Mhm.
like my husband at work wife versus husband home wife. Like you're always wife, right? You're always mom. And really, you're always teacher
Mm-hmm.
because you're always teaching your kids about, this girl doesn't like me. And now what do I do? Or so and so said something that I'm confused about and it's made me feel unsafe. And how do we navigate those very big things? You're
Mhm.
always mom. You don't turn off your mom notifications when you go to bed at night. You're always kind of carrying that. And so I think it's okay to just say, no, you're always homeschooling.
Mm.
You don't really shut it off. Your kids are going to learn who you are through your failures and through your successes. You're modeling to them a lot, just like you're modeling in your marriage and you're modeling in your
Mhm.
your friendships. It's just a different version of what you're already doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I know that there are communities that help. Like you said, there are virtual schools where the curriculum is available, and there are lots of things for the kids to take part in extracurricular activities. If they want to join a team sport, they still can,
Mhm.
being homeschooled. And I think that's another myth, is that not knowing that kids are not just sitting in front of a computer all day and they're very isolated.
Mhm.
I want you to speak a little bit about some of the other things that parents can offer and what other things they have in the community, not just for the students, but also for those that are the teacher parents.
Yeah, so we actually personally do speech and debate.
Mm.
We love it. It's a homeschool nationwide league. We come together and we compete. It's a lot like kind of club sports, right? The
Mm-hmm.
kids come together, they compete with one another. It's 3 days of friendship and competition and hanging out and figuring out how to tie our ties and kind of learning a firm handshake and
Mm.
interacting, and there's a lot of life skills that comes with that. But then the parents are kind of in it together. We're driving and figuring out what to put in the crock pot and
Mm-hmm.
talking with each other about, Tommy's friendship and this and that. And it's this really great kind of sharpening of one another where we found a community. And so
Mhm.
for you, it might be a volleyball, homeschool volleyball, or it might be a homeschool Spanish immersion language camp. I
Mhm.
just think there are a lot of opportunities to find overlap, and it doesn't even have to be um, Spanish. I don't know Spanish. I know Danish, which has helped me not at all in life. And I think it's just, the parents that come together have the greatest thing in common, which is that we're sacrificing a lot to figure this out with our kids.
Mhm,
And not that other parents aren't, but
Mhm.
we're doing it in a little bit different way.
mhm,
And we feel it a little bit more at times. It can be a little isolating, a little lonely. And that's a camaraderie that I
mhm.
think can be very powerful.
So would you say that um, y- in your experiences that you find yourself maybe as competitive as a public school, private school, charter school? Because a lot of times we feel as though that, hey, in that, am I going to be able to allow my or give my kids enough resources that they can go and take the SAT or whatever it is, moving forward? So do you find that that you have the opportunity to get to that point?
Absolutely. And I think we have more of an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
because when my kid gets up in the morning, his day is his. He knows he has to do X, Y, Z. He has to want it a little bit, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
all kids are geared that way. You have to
Right.
prod them a little, but he gets done by noon with his 4 subjects or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then the rest of the day is his. He could do chores and employment or whatever. You start to learn it's like getting paid by the hour versus paid by the project, right? You get paid
Mm.
by the project, you get the project done, you get paid the same whether you get it done quickly. Paid by the hour kind of teaches kids, oh, we can sit around and I get paid the same.
Mm-hmm.
Homeschooling is paid by the project in the sense that I get my work done, the day is mine. And you find that kids start to think, maybe I want to do a 3D printing business, or maybe I want to
Mm.
start a nonprofit, or me and my friend have this idea for a podcast. And where, if they were in the public school system 6 to 9 hours a day and then taking a bus and all this stuff, that would be a pipe dream. You're
Mm.
like, no, if you want to give up your Minecraft time to go start a garden, you have time to do that. And I think it creates very entrepreneurial
Mhm.
minded children, not just from like a business standpoint, but just from like how much can we squeeze out of this day, which I think is
Mm.
super healthy, and is going to create just a whole nother level of little citizens.
Mm. And I think something that you're pointing out, which is really a lost art right now, is
Mhm.
learning a trade. Just these basic life systems that are lost right now. Like we don't have that. I talked to one of my um, kids I used to coach. His father he has a HVAC company, and he just talked about how these kids just don't want to work anymore. They don't have that energy anymore, and they don't want to um, put forth that type of effort. So they're caught up in being behind a screen, an iPad, a phone, or whatever it is. So I think one of the things that you're mentioning is as putting back those type of values, those morals, that foundation that really help us to get where we are today as a community as a whole.
Yeah, I think really the ideal situation is if every young man or young woman could be like a little Plato plumber, where we can read classics without being intimidated. We
Hmm.
can engage with great music. We can engage in great art. Maybe have some perspective to give our um, ideas and know that it came from somewhere. But then also go and like change out the spark plugs, or
Right.
it's having the ability to navigate quickly, and in this world where everything's a YouTube video or
Hmm.
a perplexity AI search, I feel like we have all the information at our fingertips, but maybe what's lost is the ability to filter that and
Hmm.
apply it. And I do see homeschooling, at least from what my kids have done, the ability to bring that to like the next level of like making something with it, right? All the information in the world doesn't mean anything if you can't filter it down into some action.
Mm.
And I see that working really well for my kids.
But see, I think again, I think I told you in the green room that don't be surprised if we don't pull something out the woodwork. And so one of the things that we had heard in your backstory is how much you like to read. You were
Yep.
reading all the time, all that type of
Started
stuff.
at the age of 2. I'm impressed.
Yeah, little weirdo I was. Yep.
but here's what happens though, and I think what happens when I talked about the trades and things like that. Unfortunately, I think our kids no longer have that sense of curiosity, right? they've lost some of that. So my son, he laughs at me because I like Transformers. My wife could tell you I'm a Transformer guy, right? That's what I grew up on. I'm used to coming home from school 3, 4, 5 o'clock. That's what I'm looking at as soon as I come get in the door. And so unfortunately, our kids are no longer in that curious state that the books provide, and understand and having your imagination grow to be something bigger, greater, whatever it is. So do you think that also in this homeschooling perspective or this space, imagination, creativity get to live in a everyday scenario, if you will, just basic life situations?
Absolutely. And I've kind of taken an approach that was a little controversial when we started it. Looking back, it was perfect for us. We have 5 boys and 1 daughter, and with our boys, we kind of like step back a little because they bake in the oven a little longer, right? They need a little bit more time. They're not always on target for age with girls. In schools, you'll see that and they just wanted to like hit things with sticks and play in the mud
Mm-hmm.
and Play-Doh and cars and trucks, and that's natural for them.
Mhm.
And then at some point we go, no, boy, you must sit at this desk with
Yeah.
this
Mm-hmm.
pencil that feels awkward and 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 it's not compatible. And
Mm-hmm.
so we said, what if we just took a step back? Yeah, we read really good books to them. We let them listen to great music. We, teach them dance and karate, and we hit the ball and go fishing and let them build with Legos and all the things. But we don't structure it in a way that feels like school.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I naturally start to like this, what are you reading? I'd like to read this book. And we go, okay, now this is where phonics comes into play. And you start making them to want to want, right? They have to see it as something that they desire to want to do the work to get there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we make them do the work first and then say, someday you're gonna use this. And then what
Mhm.
happens is kids graduate and they never pick up a book again.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
All my boys are big readers, all of them. Still, even my severely dyslexic son in college, he comes back for the summer and he's reading Russian literature and he's reading foreign affairs books, and he's curious, and he's made the connection that books are a really good way to fill that curiosity.
Mhm.
But he wouldn't have that if we kind of like stripped it away at a very young age and said,
Mm-hmm.
we'll do the work first, you'll build the curiosity later. It has to be in the opposite order. And so homeschooling gave us the freedom to really do it that way. It's harder in the school system, I think.
Oh yeah, much much harder. I think is you both were saying how structured it is in the school system, and it doesn't allow for that freedom at all. And one of the things that sparked my interest that you said earlier is that that you make sure that your children have coaches and that they have mentors, and that's not available in the schools either. So you can actually see someone in that role, and then they would want to implement that and follow through because they see someone doing it. And then they can ask questions because that person's doing that. So I think today in today's school system, just with all the cuts, like we don't have music, we don't have dance, we don't have all those extracurricular activities in the regular day. I mean, some schools may have them in the afternoon after school, and then that becomes a challenge for busing and whatnot. So it's just really difficult to pull all those things together. But as you said, parents were always teachers. When you were saying that, I just had all the times that I would be out with the kids and we're playing I Spy, like, and it wasn't always like I spy something red. Sometimes it was something, I spy something that's ends in ing, like, find that,
Right.
So it makes them work their brain. And I mean, we continue to do this, like even to rides home from college. Like it was the weirdest thing. Like we're stuck in traffic, can't get home. And I'm like, I spy something with a, and they're like, Mom. But then they chimed right on in and gave answers. And then they were coming up with stuff. I was like, I don't see anything that way. And they were like,
Your kids are lucky. Your kids are lucky. You know what I do on the way home from college? We all look forward and I say, boys, we're going to have a talk about what we do and do not send in text messages, right? I saw something on the news. And they're like, mother, just look ahead. Don't make eye contact. That's my poor kids' drive home from activities.
Well, that's
They
once
would
we
love
get
ice
home. We
pop.
have those conversations once we
okay.
get
Yeah,
home. But
yeah.
the ride home is just like, we're stuck in traffic, we're going to take an extra half hour now. So, yeah, it's great that you continue to have that. And I think you build better relationships. You build stronger adults, stronger individuals when you have a good relationship with your kids like that. So thank you so much. How do people get to know a little bit more about you?
Yeah, so I have a website, linseyknerl.com, my name. I am kind of shying away from social media a little bit just because it's a weird world out there, but people can find me there. I'm happy to just email. My email's on there. Questions, you want to find a community, you have a a curiosity. I'm not here to sell homeschooling at all, because it's a super personal decision. But I think there is a lot of nuance to it that maybe isn't always discussed. And the great thing is, it's just like families. It's however you feel led to do it. There's a way. We live in a very exciting time with technology and communities. You can make it as computer based or not computer based as you want. I think the challenge is that it is so flexible. You maybe don't know where to start. Like, you want to do all the things, right?
Right.
So that's probably the biggest challenge.
I think, real quick, I'm sorry, I just want to piggyback off of what you just mentioned, because I think homeschooling, even if people go to a private school, charter school, whatever it is, as a parent, you're still responsible for teaching, educating, mentoring, whatever it is, no matter what time and or whatever it is. So I think that's something that you kind of touched on, like, hey, we're always in that space. It never ends.
Right. Yeah, no, it is that kid is yours. If he does something wrong, you hear about it. It's not the teacher, it's you. And you're responsible for him sometimes, even when they're at the friend's house. I mean, legally they're your kids, so
Yeah.
it's
Right.
kind of like a healthy way to think about it. Like, no, the formation kind of does fall on me.
Right.
And I think homeschooling just kind of looks that right in the face and says, yeah, so let's do some crazy fun stuff with it.
Right. So just to end it off, like my mom said to me not too long ago, that y'all never leave.
You always come back.
And I'll be 50 in a couple weeks, and she's like, "You sure you don't want to go away? You don't want to do something else?" I'm like, "But Mom, I'm married. I got my own place." She's like, "But you still feel close, so." So that's what I have to live with. That idea.
Get to live with.
Right.
Get to live with it, right?
Yes.
But I thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yes.
I thank you for your energy. I mean, it was great information. I really appreciate it. But also, before we let you go, talking about energy and sharing the stage with somebody or whatever it might be, if you had a chance to sing a duet with anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would it be?
It'd have to be Stevie Wonder, because
Really?
my almost 21-year-old son has been obsessed with Stevie Wonder since he was a little tiny thing. And when he got a
Really?
record player, he had to get all of his records, and he is always singing that. And I just think it would be so embarrassing to just I would love to I'd be the coolest mom in the world. It would be it'd be kind of trolling my kid a little bit, but also just like, look at me. I don't know. That's the first thing I thought of.
Oh,
when you
wonderful.
asked me that.
Yeah.
Yo, that would be nice.
Yes.
That would be
yes.
nice. And I think the kids will understand that. Our children will understand that. Like you said, it would be a little trolly, but
Yep. Absolutely.
But after a while, like can you see them wanting to join in and everything else? So yeah, I think that's
They
nice.
might
That's
be
a nice.
a little bit jealous,
Right.
Yeah,
Like-
but it'd be a good time. I guarantee it'd be a good time.
Yes. Great.
But we really thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was fun. Wish we had 3 hours. We probably
Oh my goodness,
Yeah,
yes.
I know, right?
Maybe we'll have you back. Maybe there'll be a part 2. Yes. Because the other thing that we didn't dive into that Maurice and I were talking about before we came on to the show was, homeschooling, we think about our children, but Maurice is an adult learner. So it's like I'm homeschooling him in some ways, because like encouraging him with his classes and things like that. So
in there looking over the papers before you send it in so no one gets
Like,
embarrassed.
don't you have class tonight? Did you get your things done? So, yes, we have some of that going on. It's almost time for registration again. What classes are you going to get for the fall? And why are you taking that? What does that have to do with anything? Yeah, so we go through that a little bit as well. And I think there's a whole nother network for adult learners and supports and mentors and like all of that is needed as well as adult learners. And people don't think about that too much because, again, you continue to learn, but it's just, the world is a little bit different now. But, so maybe we'll bring you on for part 2.
I would love it.
Yeah.
So that's been great.
That's cool.
Yes.
But we thank you. We appreciate you.
I really do.
Yeah, thank you. I had a good time.
Well, we sure enough did, as you see.
Can't stop laughing. Great.
So, but I thank everyone else for listening to the No Fruit Podcast. And I would like for you to do your research about homeschooling and whether it's for you or not for you. And most definitely reach out to Linsey if you have any questions. And of course, their website and all that stuff will be in the show notes. So if you're one of those people that's canoeing, that's out there running the world, whatever it might be, and you're trying to figure out something to do with your children, reach out to Linsey, and I'm pretty sure she'll give you all the information you need. So I thank you very much for listening to the No Fruit Podcast, and we'll talk to you just a little bit later.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the No Fruit Podcast, where we bring you fruitful conversations, ripened wisdom, and love that's deeply rooted. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration in their day. Until next time, stay rooted in love, and remember, every seed you plant today shapes the fruit of tomorrow.